Alright, everybody, welcome back to another video. And I kind of wanted to sit back a bit and talk about something that I really don't talk about as much anymore. And let me turn down the music here. I've been missing this track, honestly. I feel like it's a good, background. Let me just turn it down a bit. Anyways, so I want to talk about some recent events that I've apparently learned, which I haven't known for a while. And that's with the whole theMDLune and Starbreeze kind of ordeal. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, for people who may not be interested in that kind of stuff, which would be kind of weird because, I mean, my channel mainly consists of Payday and everything. But apparently a few months ago, one of the games that I was very much interested in and for the longest time really hyped on was a game called Raid WW2, which was getting developed by theMDLune and was published by Starbreeze. And it looked very promising. It looked like a game that I could see myself spending a lot of time in and enjoying. And I love the trailers that they released, and the gameplay seemed very solid. And the other thing too is that there was a beta release that I wanted to cover on the channel, which I wasn't able to at the start because I was moving at the time, because a lot of crappy life stuff happened and is still happening. But moving away from that, when I moved into the new house and got everything set up, I was able to finally look at the game, and I honestly quite enjoyed it. It was one of the few games that I had recently enjoyed, new games that I had recently enjoyed during that time period. And it was during the beta stages. A lot of stuff was, there were a few things wrong, but we all assumed it was going to be fixed later on. And my relationship with theMDLune has always been great. They've treated me well. They've been really nice people. If you don't know, if you haven't seen my Twitter, my pinned tweet is a friend of mine was going through the game and was looking around, and apparently on one of the graves, the game developers have my name on the grave, which is kind of ironic because most people now associate that as a dead channel for me. But it was one of the greatest honors I've ever got, so I'm kind of biased in that fact, that I've had a great relationship with theMDLune. I've always supported them with whatever they've done, and I think they're a great company, and they returned the favor by adding my name into the game, which, if you think about it, as a kid, I always, I found Easter eggs cool and everything. And even though, we'll get to the I guess, dead game part later on, I've always seen it as a great honor, and I'll always have that to remember that I'm in a game. Me as a name is in a game, so that was very heartwarming to have. And I pre-ordered the game. Now, I did recommend people at the time to, if you don't trust the game or if you have a bit of worries, don't pre-order. I've always been against pre-orders. I've learned it the hard way when I was a child, when I pre-ordered Deadpool, and I got costumes for challenge modes when I thought it would be like a Batman where you can play it in-game. And that was wrong. So, and I didn't know, so that kind of sucked. But I've always been against pre-orders, and I've only ever pre-ordered something when I had full confidence in the game. And that's why I bought the game pre-order everything. And then the game was released. And initially, a lot of people were negative about it. I honestly thought a lot of the negative criticism at the time was dumb, and I still kind of think that. A lot of people's opinion were that the game was a Payday clone, which I highly disagree with. Or at least a Payday 2 clone. When I first played Raid, my initial feeling and saw the gameplay and everything was it was more like if you took the challenge of Pay the Heist and added elements of Wolfenstein, the World War II elements and the picking up items and chests and everything, and that's what I always associate and will always associate with Raid. The only thing that makes it Payday 2 is for the fact that they use that crappy engine, which is really terrible, and I'll be explaining later on. So, I was playing, with friends at the time, like Ness and Seth, and we were having a lot of fun, and there was a lot of challenge to it, and Raid is one of those games that it is really like Pay the Heist, where, if you fail constantly, you will get pissed off at the game. And I honestly kind of like that. Even though I had moments where I absolutely hated it, I still enjoyed the game for the challenge, and I thought it was a fun game. And there were things like the leveling system, which I think needs to be tweaked, where it's a bit grindy. I feel like it's very grindy. I recommend any new players who want to play the game should play at easy and then go all the way up, because if you start normal and go all the way up, you'll have a lot harder, I find it a lot more difficult time to experience the game. So I feel like Raid is one of those games that actually have to be fleshed into a sort of, you build up as the difficulty, And honestly, for the longest time, I thought it was a great game, and still do, honestly. And I haven't played it in a while, because Raid is very focused on co-op aspect. Line Game Line has always been about focusing on the, multiplayer and the co-op, working together with your team, instead of what Payday 2 has become now, where you can pretty much do everything by yourself. And that's where I think a lot of criticism about it was misplaced, where people were saying it's basically a Payday 2 clone. And the only thing that's a clone about it is the engine, really. And honestly, if I had to pick a game to sort of support more, I would still pick Raid. Even though many people will say I'm kind of biased in that aspect. The reason why I pick Raid is I feel like Raid is a new IP. Raid's not a new concept. It's the same kind of the 4-player co-op. World War II has been a genre that's been, has come and gone many a times, where people been on that hype train for World War II games, and it slowly disappears, but then it comes back. Because World War II is probably one of the darkest times, not really one of the darkest times, but a dark time for America, and the rest of the world, honestly. And, people love to talk about it, love to make stories about it, because it is an easy one to make. You can say World War II, and then you had to pick a setting, and then characters, and you basically have your story right there. It's not that hard to make a World War II story, if you put, some time into it. And so, when I saw Raid, I was very excited. I was like, oh, I'm really into World War II games. I'm into shooters. I want to play this. And I still think the game, for what it is good. Even though it does feel grindy at times, and there is a few things that I feel like can be tweaked, I feel like the characters were really one of the best things about the game. John Cleese is a character. Mrs. White could have been fleshed out a bit more. I feel like she was just, you know, kind of like a side thing, really. You know, just like a throwaway bang in that sort of aspect. But I love the characters. I love Sterling. I love, obviously, Wolfgang. I love Wolfgang. And let's see, there's Kurgan, and then there's Rivet, who I could care less about. And so I had very high hopes for this game. And everyone didn't, really. Everyone wanted to crap on the game. Everybody thought it was terrible. And now looking at it, I still think it's a good game. And now we're going to get into the controversy here and why I think the game sort of failed. Not only sort of failed, but yeah. And that has to do with a lot of Starbreeze. And I might, you know, I'll probably ramble on as I go through this, but I feel like Starbreeze is, in my honest opinion, a terrible publisher in recent time. They only focus on games that they don't seem very developer friendly, in my honest opinion. They definitely have their favorites. They have Payday 2, you know, they have Overkill, and then they have the Dead by Daylight guys, who really, you know, I was excited for Dead by Daylight, but it's honestly not the game that I wanted. I wanted a game that was actually you get to pick the killer, which I think you can. I can't remember, but you know, I was thinking more slasher, like Friday the 13th, which honestly I think Friday the 13th might be a... If they could change, you know, a few things, maybe add different maps or different layouts, you know, different stuff, I think it'd be a better game. Not just like a one-time streamer game and that's it. And that's what Dead by Daylight was not... It didn't... Of course, you know, not everything's going to be how you want it to be. But I was kind of... I felt misinformed of what the game was going to be. I didn't know there was going to be some sort of spiritual aspect, even though it was in many trailers and their website at the time. But I didn't think it was going to be that heavy. You know, I was thinking it's going to be like maybe slasher film-esque, you know, like Friday the 13th, and that's what I was almost in the beta, but the beta was so crap at the time that I couldn't even get in. But I, you know, was on a forum and they were asking me a bunch of questions like, oh, what sort of slasher films do you like? What gameplay elements do you like? And I filled it out and they let me in, and I didn't even get to play the game. So I couldn't even tell you what I felt about the game. I only played it like one match and that was it, and I honestly did not like it. And I feel like Dead by Daylight, to me, is the Raid WW2 as everyone sees it. It's definitely not a dead game, Dead by Daylight's... I don't know, I haven't heard about it in a while. I have not heard about a lot of Starbreeze's, you know, games. And that could be for the simple fact that I'm not interested in video games as much anymore. But it's just weird. It was like Dead by Daylight was one of their biggest games to come out in a long time. And that's because they've been so Payday 2 focused. And then just no word about it, nothing else. It's been getting consistent updates, but honestly, I don't see it as a game that I would be playing for a long time. I like to buy games that either I'll play with my friends for maybe a couple of months, or a game that I'll be invested in a long time. And Dead by Daylight is neither one of those. I still think Raid is one of those, but Raid is a lot more focused. Like I said, it is for the challenge, and it is Pay the Heist. It takes what Pay the Heist was. And I guess people did not want that. They didn't want a, you know, multiplayer heavy focused game. They wanted some piece of crap that was, you know, oh, you know, let's run around and, you know, not do anything forever, you know. And while there is moments of maybe Raid being too hard at times, like drastic difficulty changes, which I can agree with, I still think, you know, it's a good game. And I don't know how many times can I say good game in this video, but and so I think a lot of it is to do with Starbreeze and just how they market the game. And you know, they obviously market in Payday because there's a heavy connection. In some of the early concept art, Wolfgang actually had Wolf's like mask as like a little patch on his you know, shirt, which the developers thought was very cool at the time that I discovered, which apparently no one else did. Anyways, and so, you know, it was very Payday 2 focused, and I feel like it was trying to get the Payday 2 fans to get on board with it, which obviously I think they got too heavy with Payday 2, trusting of it, even though Payday 2 at the time and still is at one of its worst states right now, and we'll go more into that. This is basically just the rant on Starbreeze or something, but you know, it makes sense of why they would market with Payday 2. But out of that, that was it. They didn't market too much. There wasn't any, you know, wasn't on any real news outlets that much, and the ones it was on was saying there was a Payday 2 clone. They only had like one endorsement, and that was from Cow Chop, and honestly, Cow Chop is probably not the best one to do. Even though you would say, oh, well, you know, they did Payday 2, and or they did Pay the Heist, and a lot of like Overkill success is from the creatures. You know, a lot has changed, and the way of marketing right now is very uncertain. But doing it through at least those YouTubers, I don't think was a smart decision for them. I feel like the marketing could have been a bit better for Raid, because a lot of marketing for it was from, like, you know, old Payday 2 YouTubers who, you know, might not have done well, maybe. I don't know. So a lot of the marketing is to blame, but I also think it's heavily on Starbreeze, and it comes back to the theme where I said Starbreeze is probably one of the worst companies for developers. They definitely pick their favorites, you know. Right now it's Overkill with Payday 2, and Overkill's The Walking Dead, and Dead by Daylight, which apparently they sold many of their shares just to recover from the loss of Raid, and that shows a lot of sort of how do I put this, lack of trust with Lion Game Lion. Oh, hold on, sorry, I gotta go. Back to making a video that no one will watch, most likely. Anyways, like I was saying, but, you know, it shows a lack of trust with Raid, and they continue not to talk about it, not to market it, not to do anything with it. And that's sad, really, because I feel like Raid has so much potential to be a good game, and it's just, you know, left sitting there. I hope that, you know, Ilya and his team do something to recover from this, because certainly you can't rely on Starbreeze for anything, apparently, because they're always just going to pick the two favorites that they, well, one that they had. I don't even know if they still own the rights fully to Dead by Daylight. Maybe that's why I haven't heard marketing from it. Or, you know, from the one that they'll always keep is Payday 2, and they will just keep milking it to the ground. And that's one thing about Payday 2, which I haven't really talked about in a while. For a while ago, I was having a big boost with Payday 2. I was gonna, you know, roll out a bunch of stealth videos with the new update changes. and then I stopped. There's still a few out there, and I was doing achievement videos, which honestly I think looked nice. I was making some good good thumbnails with everything, but I just lost interest again. And I think one of the main reasons is because, Payday 2 is it's old at this point. It was released in 2013, and it's now 2018. It's been a long time since Payday's been around. And it's shown. Another thing too is that the fun fact about the engine that they've been using, the diesel engine, originally it was for RTS games, not first-person shooters. So a lot of the errors that Payday the Heist and Payday 2, I'm not entirely sure if they used the diesel engine for Payday the Heist. I can't remember. But for Payday 2 and for Raid, a lot of those bugs are from an engine that's currently dying and an engine that was not made for FPS. And so, that's where a lot of the mistakes come into. And, Starbreeze and Overkill have been making an engine for a while now, and they can't finish the damn thing. So then, for Overkill's The Walking Dead, they had to change it into Unreal with the Valhalla plugin. And so, they keep going at it with Payday 2. And while yes, a lot of the story elements of the game have been very nice, and nice to see that the game might finally wrap up soon, it still doesn't change my opinion on the feeling of... let's put that over there. Okay, sorry. Of the feeling that a lot of Payday 2 has been lost recently, Overkill doesn't make Payday 2 great anymore. They've been relying on the community a lot out of recent time, with the mod workshop, which I don't like those people as much anymore. Not Zero or AJ, those people are cool, but the mod workshop team is just meh. But I have seen that they've been trying to keep the game quote unquote alive, and what I've seen of that is make things that the developers will just eventually add into the game later on. Like the fact that there were only 2 AI at the time, which made no damn sense in solo play. Like why there was only 2 AI at the time, and then they added a 4th one later on in the game when there was a mod already did that, and then they just added it later on, which just I don't understand. But people have been making a lot of heists and maps for the game. Some of them good, some of them not great, but it's always nice to see people giving life to the game when the developers don't really talk about it much anymore. And and a lot of the other ones, it's just a bunch of guns. They're just making guns, and I don't feel that guns are going to make Payday 2 great again. I mean, you have a bunch of guns in the game as is. It just doesn't add anything for me. I mean, HUDs are nice. That's a nice feature. And honestly, masks, I feel like, are more personal with the player. And same with guns. But I just feel like guns aren't the way to bring life back into Payday again. But moving on from that, and the thing is that Overkill doesn't talk about Payday the way that I remember, or at least heard of back in the day. Every month you would get some sort of snippet of new content. You'd be like, oh, this DLC is gonna come out, this DLC is gonna come out, And while yes, to some people that may have gotten boring, but honestly, a new DLC was kind of exciting at the time. It was like, oh, Overkill is going to be releasing the new weapon pack from Gage, or a new collaboration with, like, say, you know, that makes sense, like Hotline Miami. But they slowly stopped doing that, and the collaborations that they do end up doing are either small updates, like, say, the Shadow Raid update, which was god awful. But for Shadow Raid 2 was actually pretty nice. They got Dallas a gun and a melee weapon. Meanwhile, we got 4 masks and a melee weapon that really had no purpose to the damn game. You know, we got the crappy end of the stick when it came to that. You know, it would make sense to be like, oh, well, we added Wayne into the game. You know, it would make sense if they did that, but that would require them to do, you know, VO and voice acting and all that. But, you know, that's too much for overkill. But they can add, you know, 2 YouTubers into the game and then a character that made no damn sense to add. Duke! And that was one thing, too, that I hated. The whole Duke contest was probably one of the worst things they had ever done, honestly. You know, it's nice that they're adding, like, letting the community be like, oh, who do you want to be added into the game? You know, add your heister and everything. And all these people are adding cool heisters, cool ideas, cool, you know, cool characters, cool masks, cool everything. And they picked the blandest character out of the bunch, which had a very nice suit and a mask that was very reminiscent of, like, Greek or, you know, Greek statues and all that. And I feel bad for the guy that got picked because everybody, you know, gave him crap at the beginning. Which I'm sure he's, you know, maybe regretting. I don't know. Maybe he's happy that his character got in. But, you know, people are like saying, why don't you add your character in the game? And, you know, someone actually even posted a tweet one time making a reference to me. Is by saying that, why would I trust Overkill with adding a character that I want into the game? Simple as that, you know. I could add my own character, you know. I could add the blue suit, the red tie, you know, or the tie with multicolored, the red undershirt, all of that, right? I could add my mask and everything. But knowing fully well, if they added my character, I would not have any creative license over it anymore. I would be giving away my character to a group of people who honestly would not do my character justice, you know. I would want my own voice actor, I would want my own perk deck, I would want my own everything. And you gotta think of it, did the guy that got, like, who got picked, did his character, like, the character that got picked, did he get to have full creative outlet on any of that? Probably not, because they had to fit it into their damn storyline. And Duke is honestly probably one of my least favorite characters. I mean, he has some great lines, but his character overall was just a thrown-in character to fit into the lore of the overgrown, messed up lore of Payday. And that's one of the other things too, is that the lore of Payday at this point is just not that great anymore. I mean, there are, you know, good things to come out of it, like the recent, you know, the dentist development and Bane getting captured. But you can't lie, you cannot deny that for a while there, Payday 2 lore was crap. I mean, you know, they would be adding in characters into the game and you're like, oh, so what's their connection? They're not that character, but they're a character. And it's like, okay. You know, for many people, it's like the Hotline Miami when they added Jacket. I still believe that it's most likely Jacket. But people like to believe in other theories. You know, there's the whole Scarface thing. It just became a mess, man. And that's why, you know, after Payday 2 was probably said and done, I don't know if I will uninstall it, because that's a huge, you know, lot of memory to re-download. But it's a game that I don't really see myself playing after a long time. Maybe after like Payday 3 comes around, but I don't know. They keep beating it to death. And then when they released the trailers and everything for Overkill's The Walking Dead, I honestly was not impressed. After a game that I was hoping to come out at many a times. You know, they announced the game like back in 2014, back in 2015, and we're in 2018. And they kept delaying the damn game over and over again because they could not get the engine right. So they had to use Unreal Engine and put the Valhalla, like a Valhalla plugin, whatever the heck that means. But looking at the game and looking at the gameplay and everything, it doesn't look fun. It honestly just doesn't look like a game that I want to play. And the other thing too is that they relied on an IP that was popular several years ago, but is slowly dying. And regardless of fans, right, I understand there are fans out there of The Walking Dead who are big fans of the show, who are big fans of the comic books, but the show is gradually getting worse over time, and it's starting to show. Like, when you look at the last season of the show, right, or not the last season, but the latest season that they have, it is literally them finally rebuilding society, and then a few characters can't, you know, let go of the past, and so then they start fighting again. It's like, it's a show less about the zombies now and more about the human, and it's not even about the human reaction anymore. And, you know, that was an interesting thing about the early seasons, is they're showing how can these people survive in the world, how are they going to react with each other, how is it going to affect their later relationships. And now it's a show where they could obviously be fine. They could obviously rebuild society for a better tomorrow, but they just don't. They can't let it go. And it's like, why would I want to watch a show where I'm literally seeing the same fight over and over again? And, you know, they're adding in characters from the comic books. And, you know, comic books are different. I feel like comic books, you know, I feel like comic books take less money, and, you know, it's a piece of art, and, you know, television and everything can be art too, but I feel like when you're reading a comic book, you know, you can put your own mindset into it and everything. I don't know, it's just different to me. I can't explain why. But, like I said, they are releasing a game where the show is dying, and a lot of the fans and everything are coming from the show. While yes, there will be fans from the comic book maybe entering into the game, the vast majority of people are going to be playing the game because of the show. And when the show, or when the game doesn't have any of the characters that the show has, and, you know, you can make the same argument for such as, you know, Tall Tales games, where, you know, it barely had any of the characters from the show or the comic books. And it was still a good game because it told its own separate story. But I honestly, because of the show dying, slowly getting less and less popular, I don't think the game is going to be a success. I mean, it won't be anything groundbreaking. They might get some moderate success, but they have a very high chance of screwing up. And that's what I'm worried about. Because if Overkill's The Walking Dead does screw up, that means that they're going to push several years of Payday 2 again, and then they're most likely going to rush out Payday 3, and it will be looking the same as Payday 2, with a few differences and a few setbacks. A lot of setbacks. And then just returning the cycle that they've been going in. And that's why I probably won't buy Overkill's The Walking Dead. you know, I said it before that, you know, I might play it in the future, but honestly, looking at it, it's not a game that I'm willing to support. It looks like a game that, you know, a game that's outdated, a game that the animations look stiff, it doesn't seem vibrant, doesn't seem like anything. And honestly, the characters don't have a whole lot of personality. The only one that I actually liked was probably like the old guy who was telling about his story. And while yes, you could look at the other like characters and see their stories and how they came to be, but the old guy didn't have to do any of that. He had to sit in the car and just talk about his life. He didn't have to go through any flashbacks. He could just sit there and talk about his life, you know? That was probably one of the more interesting bits. So, when people talk about Raid being a dead game, I don't like to see it as Lion Game Lion's fault, you know? I mean, there could have been some things they maybe could have done differently, but I don't know. I'm not part of that company. I don't know what's running behind the scenes, what they have control over, what Starbreeze has control over. But overall, I would say that I wouldn't say it's a dead game. Not by their choice or their hand, by Starbreeze's hand. And I just can't. I don't want to. I can't really support Starbreeze anymore. Not that I did, but it just I have these feelings for a while, and had a feeling that, you know, a lot of the failure of Raid was from Starbreeze, because they don't know how to be a AAA publisher with still being an indie feel, you know. The only one that can ever do that is Devolver. And that's because Devolver, they don't need to rush games. You know, developers come to them, they hand them the game, and then they make maybe a few updates, and then they just go back to their lives. If you want to look at a good indie publisher who feels AAA but pretty much is indie, is Devolver, hands down. Devolver is probably one of the best publishers that I've seen in a long time, and you know, the way that they market their games, they market them heavily, they build up an audience, and then they leave it alone for a while. The Switch is bringing a lot of properties back. Say, Not a Hero. Not a Hero is a great game. It is a great game. Highly recommend it. It feels like a more humorous, side-scrolling Hotline Miami. I highly recommend it. But yeah, I think Devolver is the better publisher. They have a wide category of games. You got games like Hotline Miami, Enter the Gungeon, Not a Hero, Shadow Warrior, let's see, Serious Sam. I own a lot of their games. You know, they have something for everyone. And when you look at Starbreeze, what do they got? They have a game that's been dying for several years that they're trying to grasp because it's their biggest IP. A game that was successful for a while, but honestly the idea and the concept of the game can't last forever. A game that had much potential, but they just did not sell on, and then when it didn't do well, completely bailed. And a game that has a dying IP and just doesn't look interesting and will most likely not do well on arrival. And so that's why I think Starbreeze is a terrible publisher. They have no faith in any of their new IPs, honestly. And it's just terrible. With that being said, again, if you want to find a a publisher that feels AAA but honestly is indie down, you know, by heart, go over to Devolver. They got a great selection of games, and I honestly don't think you'll be disappointed with any of their games. You can find a bunch of games for, you know, some pretty good prices, and would last you maybe a month, maybe 2 months, you know? A lot of fun can be had with Devolver. With Starbreeze, no, I don't think so. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. I'm making this video because I saw a video by Sir Crackerbulb, which I've had a lot of differences with him, but he seems like a genuine guy. You know, he's very honest with his opinions, and I like that. You know, I like people being, you know, I wish he was able to see different sides of stories maybe, but honestly he seems like a great guy. You know, I've supported the Not My Payday 2 thing, the voice for heisters program that he was doing. I supported that, even though I didn't fully agree with a lot of the stuff that they were supporting. I can understand other people's point of views and support them. But he brought up a lot of good points and a lot of stuff that I had no idea about that was going on with Lion Game Lion. And I'm honestly even more sad for Lion Game Lion, and even more disappointed in Starbreeze and Overkill at this point. So yeah. Hope GTFO does very well. I saw some gameplay of that, and it looked okay. I'm a bit skeptical, but I feel like it will be a better game than Overkill's The Walking Dead, for sure. But yeah. Anyways, that's about it. I'm gonna edit some videos, probably edit this video and post it. Gonna go stream for a bit because I have nothing to record, and probably just enjoy the rest of my day. So thank you again for listening to this. Hopefully the music wasn't too loud. Hopefully you could hear me. Otherwise this whole video was a waste. But you know, if again highly recommend, go check out Devolver. Here, hold on. Let me recommend a few games. Just while I'm here, let me recommend a few games that I own. I wish you could do it by publisher. I wish that was a thing. Devolver. Let's see. Devolver publisher. Here we go. Featured, browse, the hidden gems, top sellers. It's not what I meant. Like out of all time. Not the other way around. Upcoming releases? Oh yeah, they got a few games that were kind of meh. Yeah, let me turn off the music because it's kind of starting to get repetitive. Yeah, top sellers. Enter the Gungeon got a new update. Really fun. I highly recommend it. They have a game called Absolver. Don't really know much about that. They have a game called Gorn. It's like a VR battle arena. Some Serious Sam. Block Hood, which you build your own city, your own neighborhood. Looks interesting. The Red Strings Club, I'm very much interested. They have Broforce, which is a side-scrolling game you can play with your friends. Shadow Warrior 2, Hotline Miami 1 and 2, Strafe. They got a bunch of games that, you know, depending on your playstyle and what you're looking for, I think you'll find a lot of good games here. You know, if you're looking for a side-scrolling beat-em-up, definitely check out Mother Russia Bleeds. A game that I very much enjoyed that I wish had a lot more support, but is honestly, it's not online. So if you have some friends that are local and you got a few controllers that you could somehow plug into, if you can somehow plug in 4 controllers into your tower and play, highly recommend. Highly recommend. It is a fun game. It's a fun beat 'em up, and I'm sure it'll be a lot more fun with friends than I did with solo. But yeah, check out Devolver. They got a lot of good games. But yep. Anyways, that's enough for me. I'm just a guy with an opinion about stuff, and yeah. So anyways, see you guys in the next video. Hopefully you enjoyed, and have a good day. By the way, check out my stream. I'll probably be streaming in a bit, or when this, I'll probably be streaming during this recording, or this what you're listening to. But come stop by the stream. We're gonna be playing some Fallout New Vegas again. Gonna be trying to play all the DLC missions and try and beat the game. Hopefully, it probably won't be this week. Hopefully next week we'll be able to beat the game. I don't know how long the things are, the side missions, but yeah. Anyways, again, thank you for listening. And I'll see you guys in the next video, or audio log, depending, because I don't want to put these up on SoundCloud because I don't have a Prime account. So yeah. Again, thanks for listening. Have a good day.